Good evening, P7 parents of the Fraserburgh cluster. My name is Mr. Walton. I'm one of the Deputy Head Teachers at Fraserburgh Academy, and it is my great delight to welcome you this evening and introduce our first speaker, which is Mrs. Whyte, who is the Deputy Head Speaker with the responsibility for our school transitions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walton, and good evening to everyone. A warm welcome on, certainly from where I'm sitting at home here, a bit of a blustery and wet evening. And once again, we are doing our first Parents Information Evening for our P7 cluster families at Fraserburgh Academy via an online means, virtual means tonight. Hopefully, it is our hope that come our next parents evening that we'll have with you, that will be face to face, but as has been the case for the last couple of years, I think it's safe to say we've got to wait and see how things transpire as we go through the pandemic. So tonight's parents information evening is, as it says on the tin, it's an information sharing evening where we're going to give you lots of information, and I appreciate that it's going to be lots and lots of information. Some of you may have children at the academy already, so some of the news that you're going to hear tonight is maybe things that you already know. Maybe your child, you've got an older child in maybe 4th, 5th or 6th year, and the transition that they had is a little bit different to the transition that we now offer at Fraserburgh Academy. So for everybody included, it'll all be some new news as well as some news that maybe you already are aware of. With no further ado then, I would like to hand over to our head teacher, Mrs Sharp, to introduce the evening and to introduce her team. Mrs Sharp.
Thank you very much, Mrs Whyte. Good evening, everybody, and I also want to welcome you to this Primary 7 Parents and Carers Information Evening. This is an exciting time for Primary 7 pupils and also for their parents and carers, as moving from primary to secondary is a key stage in their lives. It's also an exciting time for us here in the school as we look forward to meeting our new first years, and we're very keen to get to know them as quickly as possible. We appreciate that attending this meeting virtually is possibly a completely different experience for you as it is for us, and the purpose of this meeting is to give you information about the transition process, tell you about our school and the key people in the school, and to reassure you of the many processes we have in place to ensure the move from primary to secondary is as smooth as possible. We know that sometimes young people and their families can feel anxious about this move, and so having all the information early in the process is very important. Throughout this meeting, there is an opportunity for you to post questions in the chat bar. If you don't want to do this, but still want to ask a question, please contact the school on 01346 417 400 and one of us will get back to you. The Primary 7 transition to secondary school begins in January and runs to their very first day at Fraserburgh Academy in August. We have lots of different activities planned for your sons and daughters during this time, which you'll hear about tonight. And above all, we are so keen to get it right for all the young people and give them a real welcome into the Fraserburgh Academy family. And now I would like to introduce you virtually to my senior leadership team. So first of all, there's me, and then we have Deputy Head Teacher Mr Buchan, Deputy Head Teacher Mr Carlin, Deputy Head Teacher Mrs Murray, Deputy Head Teacher Mr Walton, who opened the meeting, and Deputy Head Teacher Mrs Whyte, who you have already heard from. In Fraserburgh Academy, we speak about the Fraserburgh Way. It's our plan for how we want our school to be. As you can see from this poster, we have our values there: aspiration, community, integrity, kindness and trust. These are values we want to see not just in school, but taken into the community. We speak about recognition, where we give praise where praise is due. We have a new system being rolled out currently by our PT, one of our PTs, in the different ways to recognise real achievement in school. We have our routines, our repair, our phrases and our responses, but right in the middle of the lighthouse are our key 3 words: ready, respectful and safe. Now, we deliberately chose 3 words because they're easy to remember, but they fit all situations in school. They are our school rules, and we discuss these regularly with learners. We talk about them being ready for learning, ready to get on with others, ready to follow instructions. We advise them to be respectful of others, of pupils and of staff, to be respectful of the school building, the environment, and to have self-respect. And safe. We're not just speaking about behaviour which makes the school unsafe, perhaps jostling in corridors, but also being safe in classrooms, safe to make mistakes, safe to answer in class. Now the Fraserburgh way wasn't just something that we've dreamed up. This was something we worked with other staff, with pupils and parents a few years ago now, about 3 years ago. And this is the way that we work too. And it's very, very important that we teach the primary sevens about this before they come up. Perhaps already in their primary school they are using the words ready, respectful and safe, because I am aware that a number of our cluster primaries do use the 3 words as well. And I have to draw attention as well to the lighthouse in the middle of that. The lighthouse, as you can see, is in our school badge. And we're very proud in Fraserburgh of the Kinnaird Lighthouse and the Lighthouse Museum and the whole heritage round about that. And we very much see the lighthouse as being right in the centre of what we do, sending a beam out into the community from the school. And now I'll hand back over to Mrs Whyte.
Thank you very much, Mrs Sharp. Following on then from the Fraserburgh Way and introduction to our school, it is time to introduce you to the transition process. And last week I sent out a calendar of events for the transition across the entire 4 or 5 months that we do transition to primaries, and I hope that that has been shared with you. So the calendar of events starts tonight, where we begin with our information sharing evening with yourselves. And following on from that, we have various people that thankfully this year, unlike last year, we will be able to make actual visits to the primary schools. The last couple of years has been a very difficult transition for all our youngsters and staff alike. So we are very, very grateful and really pleased that we'll be able to do face-to-face visits to primary schools. So that will start in the next few weeks after the mid-term break. The first people to go out will be the guidance team. So there'll be various members of the guidance team, and we've got some of them you can hear from tonight. They will be visiting the primary schools and explaining their role and answering any questions relating to transition, but also to Fraserburgh Academy being an S1 pupil. In addition to the guidance team going out to the primary schools to visit, we'll also have some of our pupil support workers also going out. Once the guidance team have been to visit, the pupil support workers will also go and visit. Again, this will be to reassure and to answer questions, any questions, because we realise that there are many questions that our young people and families have regarding transition. As it says there are transition meetings, and these are meetings that take place for all different reasons, and myself and some of the guidance team and our principal teacher for additional support for learning, who you'll meet later on, Mrs Corney. We also attend meetings, and these meetings are to share information about your young people, and in particular if any specific needs need to be met, and in particular maybe some transition things that we need to be aware of. So these meetings have already taken place and will continue to happen over the course of the next few months. Our first big event is the Enterprise event, and we've run this a few times over the couple of years prior to COVID, and it proves hugely successful, and we've got many pupils from our S3 employability class that support this event. This is an event that's held in the school assembly hall over the course of 2 days, and we take half the P7 cohort on one day and the second half the next day. And this is a chance for them to meet their peers. Some of them they will have never met before because they're from outlying areas and they've maybe never, they maybe don't know them at all from outside clubs and things. So it will be the first time that they've all met together. So this is a really exciting prospect because we didn't have this last year in its fullness. So we are really excited that we're going to be able to do this year. The next big event after that is in May. So the Enterprise event in the Assembly Hall is in March, the first week in March. And the Transition event, the Transition 22 event, is a really exciting, fun day We've had the first year we had glorious sunshine down at the running track beside the beach. Last year, I'm sure that the guidance team remember it very fondly. It wasn't quite so sunny, but we had such a special and brilliant day with all our P7s from last year. So we're really excited about that event taking place again. And again, that's not just academy staff. We've got active schools involved in that, as well as our PE staff and our community learning development colleagues as well. We then move to the visiting days. Before I mention and speak a little bit about the visiting days, I'd like to mention at this point enhanced transition. Now, Mrs Corney will speak a little bit more later on about enhanced transition. But enhanced transition is for those pupils who maybe need a little bit of a softer start to the academy, and the referrals for those are taken from the primary school. And again, the process for that has already started, and primary schools will be speaking to parents about enhanced transition. So you will be made aware of that, you will be consulted in that, and you'll be made aware if your child is going to have an enhanced transition. Again, Mrs Corney will speak about that a little bit later. So moving on to the visiting days then, and I know that this is, for a lot of people, this is the most exciting time, because this is the days where you actually get to be in the school for full days. We've got a plan. We've got several plans, because obviously we're still living through this pandemic, and as we are tonight, we have to do some things still have to be virtual. However, we are very, very hopeful that the visiting days scheduled for later in June, okay, around about the 23rd of June, we will have at least a couple of days when your children will be in following a timetable and visiting some classes and getting to know the building, getting a tour of the building and meeting seniors. So it's very, very exciting, the visiting days, but a full itinerary of what that visiting days will look like will be announced and presented to you later in the year, and certainly in much time before the actual event itself, before the children arrive in June. Transfer of information is really, really important to us, because we don't know your young people. Your primary colleagues, our primary colleagues and your primary teachers know your young people very, very well. So we rely heavily on them to give us information that will smooth the transition for the young people to the academy, but also help provide us with the information that we need to get it right for them as best as we possibly can at the beginning of S1. So that transfer of information has already begun. And that happens over a course of a couple of months, and the P7 teachers and head teachers have got various bits and pieces of paperwork that they fill in for us, and that is then passed over to us, and then it's shared with the relevant guidance teacher. Which brings me nicely on to allocation of classes, and I'll speak a little bit more in some detail later on about the allocation of classes. But at this point, all I'd like to see is the allocation of classes. It's a big task. This year we've got over 240 pupils coming in again, so it's a huge task to place 240 young people into their classes. As many of you will be aware, for the last few years now, we have gone with a system, and it works very, very well, where if you already have a young person in school, we allocate your P7 learner to the same house. So if you've already got a child in Fraserburgh Academy, your next child will go into the same house. Okay. A big part of transition, and in particular when they start in August, but also for the June dates as well, for the induction days, a big part of the success of that days is our S5, S6 students, who act as fantastic buddies. And we've been blessed over the last few years with many, many great, outstanding senior pupils that really take on that role with great pride and joy, and make the P7 induction days, as well as the first week in the academy, a lot easier, because they're there to escort them from class to class and help them on their way, and they get to know them as well. So it's a link that they make with the senior school very early on. Okay, so that's a little bit more detail about the transition process and what it looks like. Next up, I spoke earlier on about our pupil support workers, and they will be visiting the primary schools. Their job to visit the primary schools is to support and answer questions and reassure, because we realise that this can be quite an anxious time for many young people and families, because some of you may be coming from a very, very small school with very few pupils in it, coming to a very, very large, one of the largest secondary schools in Aberdeenshire. So our pupil support workers will come out, as I said earlier, to visit the primary schools after our guidance team have been out. So these visits will start round about, for the pupil support workers, these visits will start round about Easter time and will continue right up until the actual induction days in June, where they will play a pivotal part in supporting the young people. So you will meet our pupil support workers over the course of time, and certainly you will meet them at the next parents' evening, hopefully in person. And Mr. Walton, if we can go on to the next one. Yes. So as I've alluded to already, we recognise that this transition, as Mrs Sharp says, can be an anxious time, as well as an exciting time. And in our cluster in Fraserburgh, we have got some pupils that are coming from some of the smallest primary schools in Aberdeenshire, as well as some of the largest primary schools in Aberdeenshire. So their experience is very, very different. And that said, coming into a very big school can be an anxious and exciting time, but worrying as well for our young people. What are the differences between the academy and the primary school? Well, I could be here for some time, I think, if I was to list them all. But as you can see from the screen there, I've just highlighted a couple. For the one that comes to mind is obviously the size of the building, and I appreciate that. But the fact that they move around a lot more. In primary school, they tend to be in their primary class for the most of the day. Yes, they've got their break times and they maybe have some activities in the hall with PE or outside. But when you compare that to come up to the secondary school, where they move every 80 minutes, they move on to another class in a different area of the school. So they are moving around a lot more, which is a new experience for them in their learning day to day. As I've alluded to already, each learner is allocated to a house and is allocated to a guidance teacher, and that guidance teacher will provide them with pastoral support. And I'm not going to say anything more to steal the guidance team's thunder for later on when they introduce themselves. So you'll hear a little bit more about what the guidance teacher's role is in a wee minute. There are many floors. There are 3 floors in Fraserburgh Academy, and most primary schools are on 1 level. So again, that is a big difference for some of our young people. Our primary school curriculum is very vast and diverse, but in the academy we also offer a wide variety of subjects. So the curriculum experience that your young people will have at Fraserburgh Academy in S1 will be to continue, yes, the fantastic learning they've had in primary school, but also to extend that in some ways that maybe they haven't explored yet. So there will be some subject areas and topic areas that they've not covered in primary school that will be very new to them. Also, when you think about their actual day, I mentioned earlier that every 80 minutes the young people move to a new class. Over the course of the 5 days in school, they can meet up to sometimes 16 or 17 different teachers in a week. That's a lot of people when you think that in primary school they only have 1 teacher really for a whole day. So that's a big, big difference, that they are meeting different people, getting to know different people and building relationships with different people, as opposed to that 1 very trusted person in primary school being their P7 teacher. So that is the difference, or some of the differences between the academy and the primary school. And these are some of the things that the guidance team and our pupil support workers will elaborate more on when they come out to visit. But at this point, I think we are now at a stage where we're ready to hear from our guidance colleagues. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the guidance team, and I'm handing over to our Principal Teacher of Guidance for Dundarg House, Mrs Washington. Mrs Washington, good evening.
Thank you very much, Mrs Whyte. I thought I'd start off tonight by sharing some information with you all about the house system here at Fraserburgh Academy. When entering S1, each learner will be sorted into a house, and we have 6 houses here at Fraserburgh. We have Corby, Dundarg, Faithley, Kinnaird, Mormont and Fullarth. The purpose of a house system is to create a sense of belonging for our learners. And once they feel like they belong, it is hoped that will help them to fully embrace everything that school has to offer. If we imagine that Fraserburgh Academy is a community, then the houses make up the family within that community. Therefore, house identity and house pride is really important here. Each house has its own distinct colours and animal mascots, They have a motto and they have their own set of values. Each house is also led by a house team, which is made up of our senior pupils, so our S5s next S6 pupils, who fill the role of house captain, vice captain and our prefects. We build on house identity and house pride through the house point system with inter-house events and activities where all pupils can participate and gain points for their house. Each house team organise the various events throughout the year. This enables our learners to feel empowered as they take on the responsibilities to organise these events, but all pupils feel motivated to join in and basically just have some fun. The house events not only encompass sporting activities, but they are a wide range of interests from things like baking to debating, and that's really to ensure that no matter what their strengths, all pupils have the opportunity to succeed, feel included, and importantly, gain points for their houses. Furthermore, at different points in the year, we also have house themed assemblies, so the whole houses can come together and share that identity and basically see each other. Finally, the houses also have a principal teacher of guidance attached to them, and that's just to take care of the learners. I will now hand over to my colleague, Mrs Barron, to share with you the role of the guidance teacher. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about what we do in school. So we encourage pupils to build a positive school ethos, so that creates an effective learning environment. A large part of this is helping pupils to uphold our 3 school words, so ready, respectful and safe. These 3 words are central to any discussion that we have with learners. So if we're discussing behaviour or if we're discussing progress, we're always referring back to our 3 words. We also provide emotional support at challenging times. So, for example, if pupils are struggling a little bit to settle in, if they're having difficulties with friendship groups, or if they're struggling with things like their mental health. So we create support structures within school to help them through this. We basically coordinate personal and curricular support to remove barriers to learning. So, for example, if pupils have additional support needs, we work closely with the additional support for learning department to make sure that pupils have the right support in place for their learning. And lastly, in addition to this, we focus on the day-to-day running of things in school. So, for example, we monitor things like uniform and we monitor things like attendance. I'm going to pass you on now to Mrs Tila, who's going to continue on from me and talk a wee bit about home school contact.
Mrs Tila, it's Mrs Whyte, if you can hear me. Do you want to just check that your mic is not still on mute? It looks like you're maybe still on mute. That's it. That's it, Mrs Tila. Yep.
Oh. Sorry, it wouldn't come off mute when I pressed the button. Sorry about that,
okay.
everyone.
You're okay.
When your child or young person comes up to the school and you have to call into the school to speak to one of us, whichever house your child might be in, you won't speak directly to a query about a class, it will come to us. So when you phone in to the school, if you wanted to speak to the guidance teacher of your child, the office ladies, the office staff will take a message and actually send that through to us. And then the guidance teacher will do their utmost to get back to you as soon as they can. This means that any queries you have about your young person, about your child in school, can be answered as quickly as possible. And it means that we're able to contact you where appropriate when there's any information from school. So we really act like the link between home and school, and hopefully build up a relationship with you as well. Once your young person is in school, we also have access to your contact details and to email, which means that we're able to establish a line of contact with you for any queries that you might have. I'm going to pass on to Mrs Gardner, who's going to talk to you about access to support for your young people. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to cover access to support and outside agencies. So the guidance team are able to review and discuss the needs for your young person and from there direct them towards support. Within school, this could involve a pupil sport worker, working with MCR pathways to guide them to achieve their desired positive destinations, community learning and development, and additional support for learning, but is not limited to that. There are also agencies out with school, such as social work, children and adult mental health services, and other NHS supports, active schools and work placements. But again, the list is extensive and we will try and get it right for your child. Our role is to direct your young person towards the supports that they need and review this to get it right for them. I will now pass on to Miss Douglas, who will talk about PSE.
Good evening, thank you. So as guidance teachers, we see our classes for a double period each week for PSE. PSE stands for Personal and Social Education. So for half of our time with the young people, we do some personal reading, encouraging our pupils to read for pleasure with a view to progressing their literacy and vocabulary to support them through further schooling. We are supported in this by our library colleagues and also with our support colleagues as well. For the second part of our lessons, we work through lessons within the 5 strands of our curriculum. So we cover planning for choices and changes, that's things like subject choice later up the school and also a bit of careers. We also look at food and health, relationships, sexual health and parenthood, substance misuse, and also mental, emotional, social and physical well-being. Our strands go through our lessons from first year right way through to senior school, as appropriate to each age and stage. I will now pass you back to Mrs Whyte. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much there to the guidance team. That was not all of the guidance team tonight that you heard and seen there, but it was nearly, we're nearly there. I think it was just maybe Mr Clark that we didn't hear from tonight, but we'll see and hear Mr Clark at the next parents' evening. So hopefully that's given you a greater insight into the role of our guidance teacher. And because that's also a big difference from the primary school. We don't have guidance teachers in the primary school, and you always have direct contact with your class teacher. Often it's at the gate at the end of the day. So hopefully that detailed explanation that you've heard there from the guidance team in relation to contact and their role and support gives you a greater insight into how that works. But as always, and with anything that we're describing tonight, or any of the information, and if you've got any questions at all, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. At this point, Mr. Walton, I'd like to just take a pause for a minute, and if we could take a look to see if we've got any questions, have any questions that have come in from our parents and young people tonight.
Yes, we do. One question is quite a big question to do with, is there anything in particular that the parents need to do, during the moving process, during the move to academy? And so that could be functional stuff, maybe to do with uniform and whatnot that we'll come to later, or it may even be, is there anything they need to do with their primary school in the short term, I guess?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. I think the fundamental, most important thing that you can do for our young people is to be there for them and support them and help to answer their questions at home. And if they're asking a question at home that you don't know the answer to, then that's when you come to us or to your primary colleagues. In relation to more of the sort of kind of logistics, the day-to-day running of the actual transition, we will cover things like uniform in a wee minute. Things like transport, again, I'll come to that. If you are out in the outlying areas and you need transport into the academy, I'll speak a little bit later on about that as well. But fundamentally, there's actually not much for parents to do in terms of form filling in or things like that. A lot of the information is already gathered centrally and electronically from the primary school, so a lot of that is just carried straight over to us. But I think the fundamental, most important thing that we can all do for our young people at home is to support them and let them have their rant at home, maybe if they're a little bit worried, and like I say, if they really are struggling about the move and are really seem a little bit more anxious than normal, then please do speak to your primary teacher, and they will certainly make contact with us. But also get in contact with us if you've got any questions at all between now and the time that they come up in August. Please do get in touch with us, and of course we will get back to you to answer any questions. So things like uniform and that, I will come on to that a bit later. I hope that answered that question.
Our next question is actually a perfect prompt for the next part of your presentation, Mrs Whyte, and the question is, have you got a learning support centre?
Well, as luck would have it, we are about to hear from our additional support for learning principal teacher, Mrs Kirsten Corney. And to answer that question, yes, we do. And here she is, and she will tell you all about our fabulous team, our ASN team. Mrs Corney.
Thank you, Mrs Whyte. Good evening, everybody. So I'm Kirsten Corney, and I'm the principal teacher of the Additional Support for Learning department at Fraserburgh Academy. We're a busy department with a very large team of teachers and pupil support assistants, and we're located in the C2 corridor, and we also have our junction room being on the other side of the building in E9. Could we have the next slide, please, Mr. Walton? So our aim is to meet the needs of all the pupils and provide a positive and rewarding experience. We work together to deliver support in a variety of ways, depending on the most appropriate way to meet the needs of individuals. Next slide, please. So we have the Hive and the Junction. So the Hive is an area in C6 where pupils can come to get a variety of support in different ways. This may be support with specific areas of the curriculum, or it may be that they would benefit from some supported study time. In order to access this support, pupils are discussed at a weekly meeting with myself, Mrs Whyte, and the relevant guidance teacher. We also have the Junction over in E9. Again, pupils are discussed at a weekly meeting in order to access this. Pupils are referred to the Junction in order to get help with any social and emotional barriers they may have when accessing the curriculum, and an individualised plan will be developed for them. Next slide, please. Enhanced provision. So the hub in C4 is our enhanced provision area. This was set up about 18 months ago, and a small number of pupils will access the hub for some or all of their curriculum. Pupils in the hub have usually had similar enhanced provision support in primary. Pupils who will be accessing the enhanced provision, they will be given a bespoke transition, and that will be starting around about March. Next slide. We also run a range of different groups to offer more targeted support. For example, our language tutorials offer support to pupils in S1 and 2 with a diagnosis of dyslexia, while our ASC groups look at supporting pupils with an ASC diagnosis. We also offer alternatives to curriculum by way of baking groups, ASDAN awards, and we have a new Horizons class, which looks at numeracy and literacy at National 3 level. Next slide. We also offer in-class support. Class teachers can request additional support in the form of an ASL teacher or a PSA, depending on the needs of the class and the individuals within that class. ASL staff work alongside the class teacher to target the support where it's needed the most. It may be that pupils are entitled to additional support with assessments, and the ASL department facilitate this through a number of ways, from digital assessments to reading and scribing for pupils. Just a little bit about enhanced transition. Once we have all the information from the primary, we will then organise visits for much smaller groups of pupils to come up, and this will take place over a number of weeks. They'll be involved in group activities and getting to know the school and staff. Next slide, please. We have a link on the school website, which has a link to a Padlet, which gives you an overview of all the additional support for learning and signposts you to further information. If you have any other queries, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And I'll hand you back to Mrs Whyte.
Thank you very much, Mrs Corney. That really is, as Mrs Corney says, I'm sure you're beginning to get a bit of a flavour there of our ASN department and our team. It's a very, very large team. I think it's in excess of about 30 members of staff. So it's a huge team that we've got together that provides support across the school in these various and varied ways. Mr Walton, before moving on to our next speaker for tonight, if I can just ask, sometimes at this point in the evening, especially following our ASL presentation, we sometimes have some queries that are very specific to ASL. I just wonder if we've got any questions that we need to pause to ask Mrs Corney just now.
Just now, we've got a few questions coming in that will get answered later with regards to uniform and transport. and timings for when we'll know which houses young people will be added to. And a very, very vigilant parent has spotted the typo that obviously I put there on purpose, just to test to see if our reading and literacy skills. Yes, there was a typo in the email address I posted at fraserburgh.aca@aberdeenshire.gov.uk. So 10 out of 10 to that parent for spotting that one. Thank you very much. So far, nothing in particular for ASN. A lot of information to be digested there, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, and yes, well done to that very eagle-eyed parent. Thank you so much for that. And now it gives me great pleasure to welcome our Community Learning Development team leader for this area, Lynn Gordon. I am particularly pleased to invite and welcome Lynn along tonight because we are this year offering something alongside our Community Learning Development team that's very different and very new to Fraserburgh Academy and the cluster of pupils that are going to come to Fraserburgh. And I'm going to leave Lynn to tell you a little bit more about that new exciting venture. Lynn, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much. So we're going to offer P7 pupils this year some evening transition activities. So we're going to look at inviting along the house groups. So your young person will, in time before these sessions start, find out which house they'll be in, and we'll be inviting the house groups along because I think it's important. A few of the things have been said already. Mrs Whyte was saying that some of the pupils are coming from the larger primaries, some are coming from very small primaries where there may not be very many P7s, and I think we know that as well as going to a big school, they're also quite worried about not knowing anybody in their new class and things like that, and that can be a concern. So we'd be aiming to run some sessions in the evening on a Thursday. I think they're going to be between 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock, where we're running some team building sessions. So they'll come along, like I said, in their house groups, and they'll get to know the other people that are going to be in their new class, so that come August when they're up and they've done all the other transition things, they're like, oh, I'm not too worried. I do know a couple of names in my class. I have met a few people that I know, as well as if they're in bigger schools, they'll obviously may well know a couple of people, but particularly for the smaller groups. So we'd look at doing some outside activity, weather permitting. If it's really terrible, we'd obviously look to move them inside, but we'd be looking to do some wilderness skills activities. So it's getting young people to work as a team, learn a little bit about each other, learn a new skill, and just have some fun and see the academy as an enjoyable place to come as well. Also, there'll be a lot of staff that they would see around the school helping out with that activities, so it gives them a bit of a chance to kind of in a more informal way get used to coming to the building, starting to learn the names of some staff that they would see and would be able to help them with some of the transition, and also a chance to, at the end of these sessions, as we're rounding off, just to ask them questions they're not sure about the academy. So it's not in a pressure way. We're doing something else. They can ask staff, other pupils that might be helping us, and just learn a wee bit about what happens as you come up to the academy and have an enjoyable experience as part of that transition process. So that information will all come home to you through your primary schools, and there'll be a consent form that we'll need filled in, because obviously it's after school, so we need to be able to get in touch with parents or carers if there was a need for any reason. So that will all come to you in the next few weeks, and we'd ask that you hand that back to your primary school, and they'll all get collected from there and collated for us. I suppose the only thing is that there isn't transport to go with that. It would be voluntary, and young people come along if they want to come along. I appreciate it may be slightly more difficult from people from out with Fraserburgh, but there currently isn't any funding in place to provide transport for these activities. But hopefully we run it in other areas, and it's been really successful, and we get a high number of young people coming along and realising the benefit of getting to know their new peers. So that's kind of it. I think the information will come home once we know what house group they're in, and we've decided which dates which house will come along. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Lynn. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And I know that it's an exciting new prospect for us. I mean, we've worked alongside Lynn and her team from Community Learning Development for some time now at Fraserburgh Academy, but in relation to a transition, this is an exciting addition to our transition calendar. And I know from speaking to our team of cluster head teachers that they are excited about that about this as well. As Lynn says, I appreciate that we've got a high percentage of young people that stay out with Fraserburgh. So very, very aware of that, and it is a voluntary thing. We're not forcing young people to come to this. So hopefully people will be able to organise for some transport to take a young person into these events, because I'm sure they will benefit greatly from it. Great, Mr. Walton, if we can move on to the next part of our presentation. Wonderful. We've heard from various members of the school team and also out with the school team, and we work very closely and have done for some time now with our Skills Development Scotland team, Mrs Elizabeth Bruce and Kirsty Hannon and Sharon as well. Now, Elizabeth and Sharon are actually in the call tonight, and they've provided us with a little bit of an overview in terms of what their role is. So, Mr. Walton, if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So, Skills Development Scotland are our careers coaches. Okay, so we've got two careers coaches. We've got Sharon Tulloch and we've got Elizabeth Bruce, as well as Kirsty Hannon. And these are our ladies that work closely with our guidance team. Okay, and as you can see from there, their role is to help understand the options, help your young people and families understand the options and help build a career, managing their skills as well, and help move them forward to the next step as they move through their journey in life. They work exceptionally close with the guidance team, and this is a great addition to our school, so we thank the ladies very, very much for the sterling job that they do with our young people, and making sure that they've all got positive destinations and great careers that they go on to thereafter at the end of their time at Fraserburgh Academy. I'm going to let you hear a little video that the ladies have prepared in relation to their role in Fraserburgh Academy. Mr. Walton, if we could play that video, please, just now. Thank you.
Maybe you have an idea of what a careers advisor does and what will happen when you meet us. But many people are not sure about what we do, and you might be surprised by what we can offer. This 3-minute video is to explain how we can help you. So you might be thinking, why should I see a careers advisor? Well, we live in a changeable world, and now more than ever, we need to be able to navigate it. As careers advisors, we are experts in helping you learn the skills to do this. We have access to first-class career information on different jobs and opportunities, so you can feel positive and confident about your future. So whether it's exploring career ideas and options or getting support to plan a way forward, we can help you to make informed decisions and take action. We do this by focusing on you, not just your options, helping you learn how to adapt your plans, make confident decisions, and succeed whatever route you take along the journey we call career. All of this takes time because we can't do these things for you, but we will coach you to achieve your potential and inspire you to develop what are known as career management skills. Our goal is to help you find a career that makes you happy. We'll ask you questions to help us both understand who you are and what's important to you, both now and in the future. We listen to your personal story and use a range of methods to help you make sense of things. We can work in lots of different places, such as career centres, schools and local venues. So why not get in touch? So let's think more about what a careers advisor does. We'll work as a team to help you to discover your skills and strengths, or any challenges that might be holding you back, helping you to use your skills to overcome these and take control. We'll never just tell you what to do, nor do we just give you information, because if we did that, you would never learn the skills to manage your own career. This means agreeing actions for you to work on, and us working together to review and reflect on your progress. Think of your career as a journey, not just a destination. So if you're watching this and feeling uncertain about your ideas or choices, don't worry, this is okay. There are no wrong paths. So let's shine a light in the direction you want to go in to help you to see what your next steps are. And we'll help you to navigate the twists and turns you will encounter along the way. We never judge, always listen, and may stretch you out of your comfort zone to guide you further along your journey, because that's what a careers advisor does. We help you to improve your skills and confidence to manage all of your career choices and goals. We're the experts in all things career, so why not speak to us?
So I've got my essay written.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walton, and thank you very much, ladies. Mr. Walton, is there any questions for our SDS colleagues at this time?
At the moment, we have a number of questions from some of the presentations so far. One question was with regards to when the decision for which house and registration class will be decided. And there's a question on how much the uniforms are and how we get those. And there's a question about reporting and communication of progress home. How often does a parent find out or get an update on progress for their young person? And there's a question on CLD activities on the Thursday afternoon. That's one specifically for Lynn, with regards to maybe is there a chance they might be on a different night for young people that might already have a commitment on the Thursdays, just to move things about sometimes. Okay. So would you like to field any of those just now?
Yes, yeah, we could actually, the CLD questions actually. Lynn, do you want me to answer that, or would you like to come in on that one?
Fine too. Unfortunately, we're only able to offer a Thursday because my team have commitments across other schools in the north, so we're currently only able to offer a Thursday this particular time.
Yeah, and it is a voluntary. But I appreciate that some young people may be really disappointed because they may already have a club that they go to, and they would really like to come to this event as well. Maybe they could go 1 week to their club, and maybe the next week they could come to the CLD event. But you know, there's lots to be done in the transition, so they won't lose out entirely. Any other questions?
Would you like to, I know that uniform's coming up later, so maybe we come back to that. The question of house and registration class decisions.
Yeah, we are coming, I've got a bit in that coming up, Mr. Walton, I think.
Okay.
And then, sorry, on you go.
Also, and the final one that was raised was the regularity of reporting.
I'm happy to answer that just now. Yes, that's a really good question, because of course you want to know exactly how your young person is getting on. So in terms of formal reporting, we have got various times in the year where you'll be given a written version, a written report. And regarding how your young person's doing across all their subjects. So that's done twice in the year at various points. However, at any point, if you have got any concerns or you're just wanting an update, you can contact the guidance teacher and just have a wee chat and say, look, you know, I'm really interested and would like to know how they're getting on. You know, they're maybe at home they're speaking about struggling in a particular area, or maybe they've said, I don't think I'm getting on all that well, when in actual fact they maybe are doing really, really well. It's maybe their perception. So please, you know, if you have any questions about your young person's progress in school, then don't wait for reporting time. Contact the guidance teacher. But in relation to formal reporting, it is at strategic times in the year, and there's parents' evening as well in the year, a parents' evening where you get a detailed report from all the teachers. But at any point in the year, a parent or carer can contact the relevant guidance teacher for an update on how the young person's getting on.
All I would add to that, Mrs Whyte, is on a different aspects of progress. We have praise that goes home, and we also have concerns with regards to if someone is not showing ready, respectful and safe. So either side of those, and young people go home quite proudly with praise postcards and so on.
Absolutely, yes. Okay.
And a question here about support. During the induction days, will young people be introduced to places like the hub and the junction and so on?
Absolutely, yes. All pupils will be made aware of these areas, whether they're areas that they will be accessing or not, because that will be part of the tour of the school. But in particular, obviously, those people that will be accessing these areas, as Mrs Corney has already outlined, will be part of the enhanced transition process as well. So they'll have additional visits to these areas. But yes, all pupils will be shown where these areas are on the induction days. Great. So we'll answer some more of your questions as time goes on. Tonight, our Parent Council chairperson, Mrs Judy Anderson, sadly she has to give her apologies tonight, she can't make it tonight. However, at this point I would like to say that we have a fantastic Parent Council that's very, very supportive, and they're always on the lookout for new parents to join. So Judy will join us in the Parents' Evening in June, where she'll give you an update on how the year has gone for the Parent Council and the things that they've been involved in. And also she'll give you some details about how you can join our Parent Council and be an active member of the Parent Council and the parent body for Fraserburgh Academy. So moving on to the next part of the presentation, and I think this next part will answer much of your questions about organisation of classes, allocation of classes and houses and guidance teachers, and when does it happen, because I know that is sometimes the most important aspect, because it's sometimes the one that we get the most questions about, because it's the one the young people at home are most anxious about or have got most questions about. Will I be with my friends? So the allocation on the organisation of classes. First year classes are unstreamed, as it says there, so they're all in mixed ability classes for their subjects. This year, with the volume and the numbers that we've got coming in, there will be 9 register classes in S1 in August, which means we've got 6 houses, so there'll be a couple of houses that will have 2 first year classes to them, and there'll be a few houses that will have only 1 first year class. The register classes are up to the class size of 30, okay, but we have some practical subjects where we can only have them in classes of 20. So therefore we've got to put them into practical sets for the classes as it says there on the screen: design, technology, science, art, home economics and our STEM subjects. So practical classes are, as I've said, classes of 20, and these are a mix of different classes. So there'll be maybe half or a third of, say, 1C1 will be in a practical set with some pupils from 1D1, for example. So they are in practical sets for these subjects, but they're in the register class for all other subjects in first and second year. Obviously at the end of second year it changes a little bit for them because they make subject choices at the end of second year, so the classes become much different in third year because it's down to subject choice. But for S1 and S2 they are in their register classes. Now how do we allocate which class they go to? Well, as I already said this evening, that if you have a young person here at Fraserburgh Academy already, then your P7 young person at home will go into the same house. So if you have a child in Corby House with Mrs Barron, then your next child will also go into Corby House. That is how we operate that. Okay. In addition to that, we get some information from the primary schools, and that sometimes helps us make our choice. And when I do the allocation of classes, I have to say at this point that at no point in time do I ask or am I given any information in terms of their friendship groups, okay? Because as you can imagine, I cannot put 243 children with their best friend. That is physically impossible, no matter how good you are at Sudoku. You can't do that. So we don't allocate classes in relation to friendship groups. It's mainly it's actually just down to whether they've got siblings in school already, and then we just allocate classes and spread them out across the different houses. Okay, on to the next slide, Mr. Walton. The structure of the school day I think is really important to mention here because it is very different from primary school. The registration starts at 8:40, and There's a hurry bell will go round about at 8:35. And that bell really is to tell them that if they're not in their class already or they're standing outside, they really need to get a move on and get there. So the 8:40 bell is there to get the registered teachers, get the classes into the registration. That lasts for 10 minutes. They will have a registered teacher, then it'll be the same teacher they'll have all week. So that is a little bit like primary school, where they see the same person all day, but for every day, every morning for the first 10 minutes, they will have the registered teacher. And there's lots of information. We've got weekly assemblies, and there's loads and loads of information that's given out during that 10-minute period in the morning. Then we have our curriculum learning timetable for the rest of the day. So it's broken up into 40-minute periods across the whole week. So we've got 40-minute periods across the whole week. So these are, although we've got 40 minutes, all subjects are in blocks of 2 40 minutes, so 80 minutes. So we've got period 1 and 2. So period 1 starts at 10 to 9 and finishes at 10 past 10. And they move to the next class. And then we've got period 3 and 4 for the next block, and that begins at 10 past 10 and finishes at 11:30. Now at this point, I'd like to draw your attention that is the first break in the day. That's the first opportunity that they will get to go and have something to eat or drink. So bearing in mind that I know that we've got quite a lot of young people that will be bussed in the morning, and you will be coming from the outlying areas, so you may well be getting picked up around about 20 to 8 or quarter to 8 in the morning. So it's a long time. So you need to make sure that we've got a good breakfast in you in the morning, because it'll be a while before we get something substantial to eat again, because it's a few hours, 11:30. So they've got a break there at 11:30 till 11:45, and then period 5 and 6 starts at 11:45, which takes us up to 1:05, 5 past 1, and that's when we break for lunch. And we've got an hour for lunch, and again there's a hurry bell at 2 o'clock, and then at 5 past 2 our last learning slot for the day starts. So period 7 and 8 starts at 5 past 2 and finishes at 3:25, and at that point everybody is dispersed for the end of the school day. So that is significantly different to the makeup of a school day in primary school. Yes, they've got a break, and yes, they've got lunch, which is the same, but the actual construction of the day is very different. So that takes a little bit of time for our young people to get into the swing of learning, the moving around from one class to the next and things. So that's a little bit on the structure of the school day. Mr. Walton, if you want to go to the next slide for me, please. So thinking about that school day and the structure of it, and how we've spoken already that things are a little bit different in the secondary school to that of the primary. The curriculum is an extension, so we still work in first year within the broad general education, which is part of the curriculum that's delivered in primary school as well. So they will continue to learn with maths, and they've got languages, which we've got both English, French and literacy, and we've got all these other subject areas. So we've got the subject areas that come under the banner of social subjects. We've got all the sciences, and we've got expressive arts there, and we've got our technology subjects, we've got religious and moral education, and we've also got our health and well-being. And so within the health and well-being, we've got PE, home economics and PSE, and obviously you've heard a little bit about PSE from the guidance team already. So that's the curriculum areas that your young person will be following in first year, okay, in the form of a timetable that's constructed over the 40-minute periods. Now, there's been some questions already, Mr. Walton, about the uniform, so hopefully, ladies and gents and young people, I will hopefully answer these questions to you with this slide. We have a beautiful school uniform, and I'm sure that you'll see the young people dressed in that daily. I know that over the last few months, and certainly since we returned from COVID, due to some restrictions, we obviously weren't able to fully implement back our school uniform. However, we're very, very glad that these restrictions have now lifted, and we are now implementing our full school uniform again. So that goes for our young people in August. So in August, the school uniform for your young person will be, as it states there, a plain shirt or blouse, white, red or black, with a collar, because you'll be given a school tie. Okay, part of their inductions, they will get a school tie. We would like them to wear black trousers. Some youngsters do, some we decide to wear a skirt. We would just say that if you are going to wear a skirt, that it's of a respectable length. We are happy for our young people to wear a plain top, a jumper or a cardigan. again, keeping within the school colours, and the uniform colours are black, white and red. At this point, I'd like to make note that there are no hoodies. Hoodies are not part of the school uniform. Now, this is a bit of a difficulty at the moment because we are aware that we do have a shop in town that maybe is selling hoodies, and it maybe looks as if they're part of the school uniform. These are not part of the school uniform. Okay, so we don't have hoodies as part of the school uniform. You may be thinking, why has she put school bag? You'd be amazed at some of our young people who think they come up to secondary school and they don't need a school bag. Quite the opposite. They will need a school bag because they will have lots of things to take with them and to take home as well to let you see on a daily basis. So therefore, they will need a school bag to take all their equipment to and from school. And obviously taking home some of the things that they're going to make, you know, in home economics or some of the technology subjects. So it's best that they have a school bag for all of these things. And also, if we can please ask that there are no baseball caps, no hats. Appreciate that we have some young people in the winter that are maybe leaving early and they're coming in by bus and they maybe need to wear a woolly hat to walk along the road or whatever to get the bus. And that's absolutely fine, but we'd ask that they put that hat in their bag at that time. However, as you can see there, Mr. Walton has put a picture of our senior executive from this year, very smartly dressed there in our lovely, beautiful red, black and white school uniform. The blazers, you probably before we get some questions about the blazer there, the blazer is for our senior school. Okay, so our senior students. So for P7, for S1 pupils, it is just white, black or red blouse, shirt, school tie, black trousers, a jumper or cardigan, no hoodie, no hat and school bag. Okay, hopefully that's answered the questions that were posed earlier. Mr. Walton, do you want to go into the next slide, please? At Fraserburgh Academy, we offer an extensive curriculum, but in addition to that, we offer a huge variety of extracurricular clubs and activities, and thankfully we're seeing an increase to these almost on a weekly basis just now as restrictions from COVID lift. So we've got some of the clubs that are on offer there for your young person to join, and we really strongly recommend and encourage them to be as active as they possibly can at lunchtimes in various different forms, whether it be sporting activities, music activities, it can be science club. You know, we do feel that we've got a variety of clubs, that there's something for everyone there. We've also got various types of drop-in centres and drop-in groups that are run over the course of the week as well. So we really encourage your young people to get active and be part of these groups and be part of the heartbeat of the school. Mr. Walton, if we can go on to the next one, please. School transport is a big issue, and we've just had an update from the transport unit just last week outlining some changes that they've made. So we're just waiting on the final details of that, because they have actually changed. There was some forms and things that if you were a bus pupil last year, that there were some forms and things that the parents had to fill in. However, the process for that has changed ever so slightly. So more information will come from your primary school regarding school transport. Okay, don't worry, school transport is still provided for those that come in within the catchment area. There are still some restrictions and some recommendations about guidelines in terms of the distance that you stay from the school. So, but more information will come out very, very soon from your primary school regarding the school transport. And don't worry, nobody will be missed. Everybody's taken care of. Our primary colleagues are fantastic at making sure that all that is in place. So we will give you, the Academy will be giving you a further update on transport as well as your primary school as well. Okay, Mr. Walton, on to the next slide, please. Which is our last slide for this evening. And at this point, I'd just like to thank everybody that's contributed to tonight's presentation. Most importantly, I'd like to thank the parents, carers and young people that have joined us. But if I can pause for a moment before we say good night for the evening to go back to Mr. Walton. Mr. Walton, do we have some questions that maybe I've not answered or any new questions that have come in?
Yep, we've got a few, which is great. We've had some excellent interaction with all of our parents this evening.
That's fantastic.
So one parent had to shoot off who put in their apologies, and they were asking about how they would maybe catch up for anything that they missed. Well, I'm pleased to let you know that this evening's presentation has been recorded, as we always do with our parents' evenings and information events, and that will be launched on our YouTube site, and the link to that will be sent to your primary 7 teacher, so that then that means you can rewatch, maybe even watch a clip again with your young person if they're out and about today, or even if you had to nip out and you missed a part. Here's another question. One parent has asked, they have got twins, and what's the likelihood that they would be in the same class, or would we try and put them in separate classes? And I'll hand that over to you, Mrs Whyte.
Okay, that's a really good question. I'm glad that's been asked. That's very much the primary school, and I would be saying to the primary school on this occasion, and to yourself, parents and carers, that if you've got twins, that sometimes we have parents that actually ask us to separate the twins into different classes, and we also get some parents that say, on the young people, that say no, we want to actually be in the same class. So we take very much a guidance on that one from our primary colleagues, and obviously they will be in correspondence with yourself regarding that.
We had another question about modern languages. I think one of the slides had mentioned French. Our modern languages provision is a blend of French and German for the first 2 years. So that everybody learns the skill of developing an alternative language, and we do recognise the amazing amount of brain training that thinking and speaking and writing in another language does. Also the cultural aspect of thinking about the world from another perspective. That's the main aim of first and second year modern languages. Then if a young person wishes to proceed with modern languages, they've got a choice between those two, or they can do both into their third year if they're a polyglot and they wish to continue. And finally, if they wish to pick up Spanish, there is the option to start Spanish in 4th year. If they are wanting to be some kind of international superstar, maybe a spy or a civil servant, who knows, or maybe even an international business person. But no, we've got plenty of opportunity there, and also with some staff in the school, they offer some rather more niche languages as a club. So we've had Korean club, and we've got Spanish club, and so on. Another question has been things like the most common colour for shirts and jumpers. I wrote that into the comments there, that typically I would say there's a 50-50 blend of black and white for shirts, which I think looks really cool, and the young people quite like it. Some really stylish black shirts, as you saw, but also the white one looks nice and crisp and professional. As for jumpers, pretty even between red and black. Occasionally in the senior school you'll see a white jumper, but I wouldn't recommend that for the youngsters. What with playtime and rough and tumble and kicking a ball around, it wouldn't be a good idea. I don't think a white jumper. Do we want them to wear a tie every day? Yes, please.
Yes, please.
And no logos and brands? Yes, please. Correct.
Yeah. In relation to, I think there was a question that came in earlier about where can they get the uniform from and how much does it cost. So the uniform can actually be obtained. You can buy uniform from, so the school tie, you will get a school tie, so you don't have to buy the school tie, you get the school tie. But in relation to the shirts and things, Tesco, Asda's, don't go spending a fortune on shirts. Go to Tesco's and Asda's. There is Just Rights in town. I think they offer different coloured shirts there. Hopefully that answers that question. In relation to anybody that's struggling a little bit, we do have a clothing bank here in school where we're very, very happy to help young people and families out. So if you do have an issue that you need a little bit of support with that, then please don't hesitate to give us a call, and we'll deal with that very discreetly. Okay, so if there's any issues.
All brand new stuff, and
yeah, absolutely,
yep.
Yes.
Perfect stuff. What kind of footwear?
Comfy. There's actually no stipulation on footwear, but obviously I wouldn't recommend wellies in the middle of summer because it's not going to be overly comfy. So most young people wear trainers.
Nothing outlandish and nothing garish. I would say dark trainers, black trainers. That's the most popular.
It is.
Choice. Dark shoes.
No heels.
No, heels are not a good idea.
No, they'll do a lot of walking in a day, so no heels.
The next one is on PE uniform, and I think I can comment on that one, that we actually have some branded PE uniform if you wish to buy that. Otherwise, what a young person feels comfortable in. We do recommend a change of clothing for PE, so that young people can let loose and let off a bit of steam and work up a sweat without feeling that they have to wear that the rest of the day. So we do encourage a change of gym equipment, but it's not as though it has to be the school branded one.
Great. Any more questions, Mr. Bolton?
Yeah.
Timing for the bus. What time would the bus come in if you're out in the countryside?
Okay, so once the all the allocation of transport has been made, you'll actually get correspondence telling you exactly what time. So that would come through direct to you, that correspondence. So you'll be given notice as to what time that you'll be picked up at. It wouldn't just be left to chance.
I saw a couple more questions about PE uniform. What will happen is the PE department will put out communication about their expectations, and they put out a year-long consent form, because we do spend some of our time off school premises down at the wonderful sports facilities. So they will communicate the general expectation for PE kit, and also if there needs to be special stuff. So sometimes they may be wanting to use the all-weather pitch down the road, and they ask parents if there could be all-weather pitch footwear. We do have some footwear in school that we can lend to the young people if they don't have. Alternatively, if there's swimming coming up, then we give you heads up notice that swimming's coming soon as we rotate round the different sports. But the basic, in school, you're doing some gym or you're doing some outdoor, a set of football boots would be handy for when we're doing it, work on the pitch. Outdoor, joggers and a jogger top if it's going to be outdoor. If it's indoor, a t-shirt and shorts, or a t-shirt and leggings is a good idea. But as I said before, the most important thing is that your child is comfortable and confident in what they're wearing when they're doing their PE.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question here about who arranges the Young Scot cards.
I can come in on that one. The Young Scot card process is changing. I'm sure you all know that it's from this week. I think they're including the Young Scot cards, not just for getting discounts and getting their lunch, it's also for getting free transport. So that won't affect the new first years coming in, because their card will have all that on it. So when they come for some of their events in school, we'll get their pictures taken and send them off to get the Young Scot card made, and they can collect them from the school office when they come up for their visiting days. But they will need to get them, electronically initiated at the canteen, but we can perhaps do that for them. So we'll do that when they come up for their visiting day.
In relation to the photographs for that, Mrs Sharp, I can actually tell parents tonight that the photographs for that will be, it's a bit like a passport photograph, okay, it's just a picture of their face. That will be taken on the enterprise days in March. So the day that they come up at the beginning of March, I spoke about it earlier, half one day, half the next, they'll get their photograph taken that day, okay, for their Young Scot cards.
On uniform, will they need to be in uniform for their induction day?
No.
No, they'll just be in their sorry, Mrs Sharp, we're in tandem there. They'll just be in their primary school uniform. What they would normally wearing to primary school is what they would wear for their induction days.
I would add that the young people often leave their induction days with a small gift, a contribution towards their uniform that is a nice surprise for the young people. Would you like to mention anything about that, Mrs White, or do you want to keep that a surprise?
I think I maybe mentioned it already. I'll let the cat flag. Yeah, I did. About the tie. Yeah.
So please don't go out and get one.
No, don't go and buy a tie, because they'll get a tie. But maybe keep that a secret if you can. Maybe there are some young people on the call tonight. Any other questions, Mr.
Yes. Will there be information about cashless catering?
Yeah, I can come in on that again. They need to join. All parents need to be on the parent portal so that you can top up the cashless system. They can still top it up in school, but you can do that on the parent portal. You'll get information about that, and when the pupils are up doing their visiting days, we'll take them down in small groups and explain to them how the whole process works.
Thank you very much. And Now then, a question about the indoor-outdoor for PE. The young people get some heads up from their PE teacher for what block of work they're doing. So if it's going to be outdoor, they get a heads up that, okay, we need to bring their outdoor kit for next week. Now, obviously, in an emergency with, you know, a deluge and Storm Arwen or whatever it is that month, Storm Malik arrives, we won't be sending the kids out in gales. So it is a good idea that if it's an outdoor lesson and they've got their football boots with them, that they might want to bring a set of trainers with them just in case, especially if the weather forecast isn't too rosy. But you know, we would prioritize using outdoors as much as we possibly can. So that would be great. A couple more questions come in. How are lunches paid? I think we've mentioned that. And a question about free school meal entitlement and how do people register for that?
Okay, so if they are already in receipt of free school meals, that is transferred over as they move from primary school into secondary. But if this is a new
Registration.
request, yeah, if it's a new request, then again that's not done through the school. They need to go online. We can actually, if that is the case, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with us because we can give you the email address, the website to go to for that. But it's actually you would find it on the Aberdeenshire Council website under education. And
in terms of how young people access their entitlement to free schooling, because it is an entitlement, you know, we all pay into the system, so we all want to make sure that people get out of the system, is that young people are, you would never know. You would never know that a young person is in receipt of funding, because as far as the young people are seeing, people swipe their card to pay or put in their little code to pay, and it's just money on their account, that's all. It's just like money everybody else has.
Yeah, there's no difference between one person and the next. Yeah.
At what point do we allow young people to leave the precinct for their lunch?
Right, well, we would prefer that all primary sevens, new first years, stay in the school campus until at least the October holidays. This is because it means that for the first few weeks they'll be looked after by buddies, and buddies can't help them as they're down the road. They're far better up in the school. It gives them a chance to try out all the different clubs. It gives them a chance to try out buying their food in the canteen or the social area, and it just gives them a chance to get to know the people in their class in a social way at lunchtimes. But we really strongly advise them to stay in the school campus up until the October holidays, unless they're a home lunch, then they can go home. There's no problem with that.
Okay, and question about lockers and accessing lockers. Can anyone get a locker, or is it specific people?
No, that's the lockers are open to any young person that wants to. We don't have an extensive amount of lockers, that's the only thing, but they would be made aware of how to apply for a locker. I
think it's a £5 deposit which they get returned.
Yeah, there's a set of lockers that are just for the 6th year in their area, so they won't be taken away from the first years, but there's the general school has access to a set. And a question about what kind of stationery should they bring?
Well, I think they need pens and pencils, rubber, ruler, a calculator. Those would be the basics. If they wanted to add in coloured pencils, coloured pens, that's up to you. But we'd be looking for them to come with a couple of pencils, a couple of pens, a rubber ruler.
As long as they've got a rubber, they'll be everyone's friend because they're always borrowing off each other.
Yeah.
Question on mobile phones and whether or not we permit them in the academy, in classes, and so on. Which is a very good question.
Well, we're looking at this. We're looking at this just now. We would very much prefer if phones didn't come to school, but we understand reality, and that young people are very attached to their mobile phones. We want our saying for this is phones away for learning. So when pupils are in classes, we expect the phone to be on silent or off in their bag. Now, all pupils were reminded of this on Friday and Monday, because this is something they think that they have to have them in their pocket, in their hand, on a desk. That is not acceptable. Mrs Whyte's heading up a group just now looking at our mobile phone policy to revise it, but I really, really make this point very, very strongly. Phones should be away for learning. Sometimes young folk will say, oh, my mum's going to be sending me a message. Well, if you want to send your child a message and it's urgent, you do that through the school office, not have them expect to have to keep their phone on to receive a message from you. Different at lunchtimes and breaks, they can do what they want with their phones then, but phones away for learning. Very occasionally, we will ask learners to use their phones. They could be taking part in a Kahoot quiz, they could be doing some research, and then that's different, and we let them know that at the start of the period. We have a process now where they can access the internet to do that. But please, please, please have a chat with your young person about phone use. Phones should be away for learning. And as I said, Mrs Whyte's working with a group of staff just now to revise our policy on this.
We've got a question here, a very specific question about calculators, scientific or normal. I would say that calculators do last a long time, and in very short order, your child will be needing to use a calculator that has, you know, some advanced functions, you know, square rooting, squaring, and other powers. So yeah, shop around, but also don't be in too much of a rush, because the maths department will have a stock for everybody in the class, so they won't need one necessarily if they haven't got one already, but they might like to get one once they see the type that they're using in class. So it's not something that you need to rush out and go and get, because we've got plenty of very high quality resourcing in the classroom. But you know, young people do enjoy using their own, especially if they're doing homework. But that scale of work, when they'll need all those upper functions, they won't kick in straight away. So you'll be plenty of time to have a think about that. And you know, in S1 Christmas, who doesn't want to unwrap a nice new calculator when it's that time, once they've figured out which one they want and they need? Next, a question about buddying. The S6s, do they take them to classes, and at the end of the day, do they take them to their bus?
Yes, so we've got a great group of S5 and S6 pupils that will do escorting for the induction days and for the first week of first year, and yes, they will be escorted to and from all their classes, and also we have buddies that will take them out to the buses at the end of the day. Yes.
A question about a former project where we had like a ready pack that people could buy all at once. On one of the evenings, somebody had like a pack ready to be purchased, and is this still something that we would offer?
Obviously, because we've been living through COVID, we've not been able to do that, but that's certainly something that we could look into, I think, Mrs Sharp, if we're able to have the face-to-face event in June. So again, we would communicate that to you if there is a likelihood that we have got these packs that may be on offer on that evening. We would communicate that to you as soon as we know.
Yes.
And in the interest of sustainability, if the old calculator from those days still works, the maths won't have changed.
Absolutely.
So, you know, by all means, make use of it.
Absolutely. Does that bring us to the end of our questions for this evening, Mr. Walton?
Can I just say that? Can I just say to the parents, these were excellent questions, because some years we don't get asked that many questions, and really sensible questions. So thank you very much for, because I'm sure for every one person that asked a question, there was another 10 that were wondering as well. So thank you very much for your questions and your interaction.
Absolutely, thank you so much. I think that brings us to an end of our presentation for this evening, and I'd like to just thank everybody, as Mrs Sharp has said there, in particular our parents and carers and young people that have joined us online tonight, but also a big thank you to all my colleagues that have joined us tonight, the guidance team, our SDS team, CLD and our senior leadership team. Thank you all very, very much for giving up your evening and coming along to this presentation evening. We do look forward to working alongside parents and carers as we go forward. forward. And as one big message to take from tonight, there is no silly question. So please, if you do have any questions regarding tonight's presentation or any information or a new question that you'd like answered, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with us here at the Academy, and we're always happy to communicate and correspond with our parents. So thank you very, very much, ladies and gents and young people. We do look forward to working with you, and in particular meeting you all face to face very, very soon. Thank you very much for this evening, and we do I wish you a lovely rest of your evening, and also the long weekend is coming up just very shortly, so I do hope that the weather's nice and you all have a nice time. Thank you very, very much. Good evening.